everything old is new again.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Huge thank you to the subscribers as usual. If you haven't subscribed to me yet and you have been watching my videos and you like the videos, please subscribe, because obviously it helps out the channel. Supports what I do, encourages me to do this nonsense. So now is a book haul. So it's weird because I'm doing this well in advance, but I don't want to put book haul after book haul after book haul, but I've had some really good luck lately. So I want to do this book haul and see what you guys think of these books, and if you can comment on what you've read, and if you've heard of these books, that would be really cool. Clearly, some of these you've definitely heard of. So, I've now, because I wasn't massively compelled to get this, but I found it quite cheap, and I thought, actually, I do really like the first one. So I've now got The Fall of Hyperion, Dan Simmons. So let me know if you think it's as good as the first one, or if it's not as good, but still really good. Hyperion, Dan Simmons, is a very, very, very good book and deserved classic. But what's this one like? The Fall of Hyperion. I have it now, big tome. Definitely going to get into this probably early next year. So there's that one. I've now got, again, I wasn't going to buy this, but I was tempted because I found it quite cheap, and I'm doing a special event in December. I don't know when this is going out. Would you have seen this? You might have seen me mention it. I can't remember. But anyway, I'm doing a special Philip K. Dick event in December, and this is The Man in High Castle. So I now have The Man in High Castle. I really like that cover. I think it's really cool. But I don't know if it's a thematic cover or if it's got nothing to do with it, but I think it's quite cool. I don't normally like stylistic ones. I normally like just a painting or something like that. But I think that's really cool. And it is an illustration. I like that. So anyway, I've got The Man in High Castle. I've now got my first ever Salman Rushdie book. So I've always respected him from afar. I've always thought he was an awesome guy, but I didn't really know that much about his books. I was going to read Midnight Children at some point, but I haven't had it yet. But I have bought Shalimar the Clown. So what do you guys think of Shalimar the Clown? Have you read this? Have you read other Salman Rushdie books? Is there a Salman Rushdie book you would recommend in particular? That's the first one I'm going to read, Shalimar the Clown. So that's exciting. Oh, this is a rebuy for a reread. So I think this is the third copy I've had of this. Don't know what happens to the other ones, but I've now got another copy of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. And as I said, I'm doing a Philip K. Dick event in December, so I thought it'd be good to get it again, because I'm going to end the month with a reread of this. So whatever I read in December for the Philip K. Dick thing I'm going to do, this will be the last one, because he's the most famous one, and I've already read it, so it's a reread, but I read it a long time ago. So I'm looking forward to reading this again. You may have noticed, because I may have mentioned it a few times, I'm not sure if you've seen these videos before, but I've been collecting J.G. Ballard books, which is a bit crazy, because I haven't read anything yet. I've only read short stories. I love the short stories I've read, and I've just got a strong feeling I'm going to really like him. And this is the 7th book I've got of his, Millennium People. So I saw that online and wanted to buy it. So that goes along with the others. I don't know what I'm going to read first now. It's all very confusing. I've also got out of the library The Drowned World. So technically I've got 8 to choose from. So let me know what you think of that book. Is that a really good representation of J.G. Ballard? Am I completely mad for buying 8 books or 7 books before I actually read a full book of his? Probably. This is another rebuy, but I haven't lost this book, but I don't like the condition of the one I've got. So I've actually got another copy of The Melancholy Death of Oyster Boy. And the initial one I had was when it first came out as hardback, and this is a softback, so probably better to keep that one away and use this one to read. But yeah, I do like this book. It's very idiosyncratic, distinctively Tim Burton, and if you're a fan of Tim Burton, it's worth you having this. It's very macabre. It's his own take on an Edward Gorey worldview. So as that, I found a very strange, surprising book. I'm going to get that sticker off it later. It's a sequel to Day of the Triffids, but not by John Wyndham. So this is Night of the Triffids, and some guy called Simon Clarke has written a sequel to Day of the Triffids. And Day of the Triffids is one of my favourite ever books, so I'm intrigued. Don't know how good it is, never heard of it, I didn't know it existed. But on the back, it's definitely a sequel to Day of the Triffids. Presumably, he must have got in touch with the estate and said, "Can I do a sequel, please?" So, yeah, don't know. Have you read that? Is it any good? I've got a book that I've seen around a lot, but I haven't bought it at this point, but I've seen it quite cheap, so I thought, yeah, I'll get this. As you can see, it's only £1.50. What? And it's a book about the birth of hip-hop. So this is really good for me as a teacher, but also I'm interested anyway. So it's called Can't Stop, Won't Stop. And who knows, if I do another video on music books, this could be as good as anything else I might include. I don't know, but I'll have a read of it and let you know what I think, maybe. So, a book on hip-hop. This is a book that I bought because I've heard about it for ages and ages and ages. I've heard about the author for ages and ages, but I haven't read anything by him, and I thought I'd go for it. So this is The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. So he's a big name in fantasy now, one of the biggest names, I guess, but I don't know what his writing's like. But this is, if it's not his first book, it's definitely a kind of a big part of his career. So anyway, I've given this one a go. Name of the Wind. Tell me if you've read this and what you think of it. I know he's had a little bit of controversy lately, I think, because just like Judge Martin, he's not finished his latest series, I think, apparently. I don't know. I've only heard a little bit of it. Don't know the context, but doesn't bother me. I'm going to read this, see what I think. Next year, I'm going to do a massive delve into folk tales and folk stories. I was contemplating making it a themed month, like February folk or something, I don't know. But I might just go through the whole year looking at folk traditions as a whole. And I found a book of Scottish folk and fairy tales. So I quite like that. So I'm going to have a read of that, and I'll let you know some of the folk tales that are in there. And similarly, this was an amazing find. This big tome here, so it's a little big hardback thing. It's a really lovely condition. It was quite expensive for a second-hand book, but I thought I'd go for it because I've never seen anything like this. And as I said, I'm going to be looking into like the Brothers Grimm and some English folk tales and various different things, like the old Welsh folk tale that's in a like an oral poetry thing. But this was an interesting find. The Heart is a Mirror, the Sephardic folk tale. So this is all about the Jewish tradition and Jewish folk stories. So I think that's really interesting. I did look a lot into the Ashkenazi Jews because of the klezmer tradition, partly for my job, but partly because I'm interested. And this is obviously a different part of the Jewish tradition and culture, the Sephardic tradition. So I'm really looking forward to reading this, and it's pretty big, and it's very detailed. I had a little flick through it, and it just looks amazing. So it's just really good condition as well. It's lovely when you find a big hardback second-hand book that looks pretty perfect. So yeah, The Heart is a Mirror. That's a really good find. Couldn't believe it. Put that there. Also, this is an interesting story. This is a story about grabbing life by the reins and not letting it go. I went into a bookshop. It was a charity shop. So we're selling other things besides books, but they got loads and loads of books in there. And it's only down the end of my road. So I always go in there. And there was 2 books from the Gormenghast trilogy in there. And I haven't read the Gormenghast trilogy yet, but I've always been curious. And I really like the covers, but there was only 2 of them out of the 3. And just the fact there wasn't the whole 3 made me dither a bit. And then I basically went out without buying it, which was stupid. So I didn't buy those 2 books. And then I went back in there today because I thought, no, I'll get those 2 books. And they'd gone. They'd been bought. Someone bought those 2 books. But in a different shop, I did see this, which is the entire Gormenghast trilogy in 1 volume. So I would prefer them to be in 3 volumes, especially as the covers were so good in those other editions. But I want to read the books, so I'm going to read them in this form, unless I find those kind of individual books cheap again. But yeah, I don't know what this is like at all. I've always been curious. Have you read the Gormenghast trilogy? I've heard it's very dry, kind of possibly difficult to read, very macabre, very funny, very dark, creepy, eerie, all that sort of stuff, and completely mad. That's what I've heard. Have you read the Gormenghast trilogy, Mervyn Peake? Let me know, because I'd love to know what you think of it. I've now got another copy of 1984, because basically I don't like the cover, the way that it's presented, and the other one I've got. So I've had this is like the 3rd copy I've had, but the 2nd copy I had, I still have it. I just don't like it. I think it's got a really boring cover. I think it's a Penguin Classics. What's this one? This is Penguin as well. This is a better cover, I think. So I like this cover, and I think everyone should have 1984. And now talking of classics, I've bought this on the full awareness that I don't always get on with this period, but I want to read the old classics so I can just have my own opinion of them and see how I do feel about them. And it's about pirates, isn't it? So Jamaica Inn, Daphne du Maurier. Daphne du Maurier is obviously also famous for Rebecca as well. And who knows, if I like the way she writes, maybe I'll delve into Rebecca as well. But Jamaica Inn, I bought that thinking that I might like it. So let me know if you've read Jamaica Inn. And I'm quite pleased to have this. There's actually tons of Daphne du Maurier books down the road. But this is the one I've grabbed. As I said, who knows, I might change my mind, think I'll get some of those, and then they've gone, just like the Mervyn Peake books. So if you've been watching my channel, you've noticed that I've had a few James Baldwin purchases recently. So I bought Another Country recently, and I also bought Giovanni's Room recently as well. And this is another one I've found recently. So I've almost bought this new so many times, but this is pretty much perfect condition, and it was 50p. So Go Tell It on the Mountain. I've now got Go Tell It on the Mountain. So I'm definitely going to be able to form an opinion about James Baldwin after those 3, especially this one and Giovanni's Room are the 2 most famous ones, I think. But yeah, I'm glad to have this. Can't wait to read it. I'm just imagining I'm going to really like James Baldwin, but that's really just because I've seen interviews with him on YouTube, and he just seems like a fascinating and obviously very sound guy. So it'd be interesting to see what I think of this. I think I'm going to read Another Country first, but I want to read all 3 of them quite close to each other. So that'll be for next year. This is an interesting one. Another one I found in the same shop, and I was like, what is this? So Karl Marx and his best mate Engels, they wrote the Communist Manifesto together, but they also had a very deep interest in literature and art. And I'm not sure if you're aware of how much you're aware of Karl Marx's personality, but he used to write poetry, and he does say in his writings about politics and his ideology that without love, any ideology is pointless. So he is a romantic, and I guess you could call communism romantic in some ways, because it's kind of idealistic, isn't it? But I was intrigued by this, and definitely wanted to see what Marx and Engels was going to say about literature and art. So yeah, that was a bit of an interesting find, and the sort of thing that I probably would have bought when I was doing my degree, but now I have it when I haven't got those shackles. I won't be looking for quotes. So there's that. This is a funny one. This is another classic. This is Penguin Classics, and I didn't know anything about this, but the title intrigued me. So I read the back, and I thought, yeah, all right, you've persuaded me. This is by James Hogg, The Private Memoirs and Confessions of a Justified Sinner. So this is from the early 1800s, written in 1824. So written in 1824, and it's about a man with a Calvinist, with a strict religious upbringing that starts living with a Calvinist doctrine, and he starts being sinful and all these kind of things. And this is sort of thoughts on that, I guess. So yeah, if you read this, have you read James Hogg's The Private Memoirs and Confessions of a Justified Sinner? Let me know if you've read it. Big shout out to Ollie from Criminology, because I now have an Ed McBain book. So give the boys a great big hand. I've got no idea what this is about. Saw Ed McBain's name and just bought it. I haven't even read what it's about. So that's the influence of BookTube, the influence of Ollie in all of us. So yeah, I'm intrigued by this. It could be just, that it's a peculiar thing for Ollie, or it could be that he's turned me on to something that I absolutely love. So this is, because this is a 87th Precinct book, and he says that's the greatest series of books ever. So clearly a very vintage thing here. Penguin crime. Crimes against penguins. This was a really cool find. Shout out to Sean D. Standfast here, because this is the most of S.J. Perelman. So S.J. Perelman's most famous for co-writing material for the Marx Brothers films. And this is a definitive collection, 30 years of his finest and funniest writing. So I'm really, really pleased to find this. I've got an S.J. Perelman book upstairs in the loft as well, but you don't find this sort of thing very often. So I'm really, really pleased to have found this. I'm very intrigued, and I'll be reading that ASAP as well. This is another book by Ray Celestin. Celestin? Must be Celestin. Celestin. And crime book. I've got the Axeman's. Is it on there? Is it on? Yeah, the Axeman's Jazz. It is actually there. Can you see that? That's Ray Celestin, but I still haven't read that yet, so I don't even know if it's any good. But again, this was 50p, so why don't I go for it and see if it's any good? Has he read this? Anyone read The Mobster's Lament by Ray Celestin? It says there, look, author of the Axeman's Jazz. So the Axeman's Jazz looks really good. I need to read that. So yeah, this is the second book. Well, I don't even know if it's related actually. I was just going to say it's the second book. He's got his little thing there. Look. Maybe that's a thing for the author. It's set in New York, 1947. Have you read this? Let me know. And I went for it. I've never read this before. I know a fair amount about it because it's such a big part of our culture, but I've never actually read The Wind in the Willows. So now I'm going to read The Wind in the Willows. I've done a video on 10 classics that I want to read, but I'm going to do another one with some others as well, because I've got quite a lot that I want to read that are in the sort of classics of classics series it is. And then one last one, just to finish off. This was really, really, really exciting when I found this. I was so pleased to see it. And it's going to be the springboard for a video I'm going to do about robots and AI. The Pseudo People. It's an anthology which features stories by Ray Bradbury, Isaac Asimov, Henry Kuttner, Charles Beaumont, Richard Matheson, loads and loads of people. So I can't wait to read that. Very excited about that. I was so excited to find it. I think I might have found this. Yes, I think I did. I think Matt from Bookspilled talked about it, and I just immediately ordered it from eBay, I think. So shout out to him as well. Anyway, that's it. Book haul. Let me know which ones you've read and which ones you're interested in. And thanks a lot for watching. Bye.